Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Tonight I am delighted once again for the match day coverage to be joined by Laura Bradburn. Laura, how are you?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm very well. I was in Glasgow not that long ago, but I had to actually come back here to do the game rather than go to the game. So for anybody who is enjoying the game and watching this on playback, I hope you enjoyed it. We were going to have a wee look at this lineup because after every game, Laura, straight away on the bulletin, we start talking about any potential changes that may take place for the following game. And there has been quite a few. So it's an interesting lineup that we've got to discuss. A few changes here. We'll run through it. The team is, if you haven't seen it already, Joe Hart in goals. Alistair Johnston comes back in at right back. We've got Kobayashi making his debut in Starfelt in the middle with Juranovic at left back. McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly in the midfield with Abada, Jota, Kyogo up top. The substitute bench is made up of Bain, Haksabanovic, Moy, Turnbull, Awata, Maeda, Forrest, Ralston and Welsh. A couple of wee discussion points in that one. What's the biggest surprise for you, Laura?
I think obviously, the pair of us were talking about it just before we came on air. The exclusion of Carter Vickers for no particular reason that we can find is a bit of a surprising one. Suggestions that he may just need a rest, which is fair enough. He's been away at the World Cup. He's been and a constant presence in that back four for us all season. So in some ways a surprise, in some ways not a surprise. And it probably leads on to what for me is probably going to be the biggest concern of the night. You've obviously got, presuming from that lineup, Johnston will be playing at right back, which means Juranovic will be playing at left back, and you've got Kobayashi and Starfelt making up the central pairing. So from that back four, you've got Juranovic is playing out of position. Obviously, he's a competent left back, but it's not his natural position. You've got Johnston, who's got very few games for the club so far, and you've got Kobayashi, who is fresh in the door. So not an awful lot of experience there in the back four, and Starfelt, with the misgivings that he sometimes has. So it is an area of concern, but also an area of excitement. I'm really excited to see what Kobayashi and Johnston can continue to do in a Celtic shirt.
Yeah, for sure. We'll run through the team player by player, as well as getting as many comments in as possible. William O'Toole, welcome to the show. You look like a happy chappy in your avatar, if that's you, and you're commenting on YouTube. So welcome to Acsom. 4 or 5-0 at the Hoops. I hope you are smiling after the game and that prediction comes to fruition. William. Mark E. You've seen the team. We have now. Kobayashi starts with Starfelt. Carter Vickers isn't even on the bench. We're going to have a wee chat about that. Is it a concern? Is he being rested? There are certain things that we don't know. If Ange doesn't mention them in the pre-match presser, we're kind of left guessing. He might give us a wee bit more after the game. Evening all, fire blazing, plenty of drink in the fridge, and Celtic playing. Great stuff. Plus Acsom is coming on. If Carlsberg did Wednesdays, well, Paddy, if Carlsberg done Fridays, it would include Brian McClare at Gracie's for a sold-out event with Acsom. You're going to be there, and I'm looking forward to seeing you as well, Paddy. Andrew Galea, excited to see Kobayashi for sure. I'm going to have a wee chat about the dynamic that we're going to be seeing in the centre of defence. Edmund Byrne, does this spell the end of Burnaby? Not even in the squad. We'll come back to that as well. And also looking forward to seeing Kobayashi as Michael Ross. So let's have a little look deeper into that defensive lineup. Laura, you said there in terms of experience, there's obviously a wee bit there. Lack of experience in a Celtic jersey with Johnson and Kobayashi. We start off with Joe Hart. Joe Hart makes his 83rd appearance for Celtic tonight. So he'll be hitting 100 before you know it. He's had 36 clean sheets. Hasn't really been much of a concern of recent games, Laura. I know that there was a bit of flack coming his way at certain points this season, but I don't think we're going to be talking about Joe Hart after this game.
No, I think the flack that's come his way, obviously it's been a talking point on the pod a number of times, but for me the question always is this: who would you have in instead of him? I don't think Siegrist is so much of a different choice that you would think, oh, I'd rather have him in. Obviously wouldn't rather have Bain in, and your choices are thin on the ground, obviously, with Owulayemi going out to on loan to Cork. So I'm just still enjoying the novelty of the goalkeeper not being a talking point, because as you know, like, we spent so much of the past 2 years talking about keepers. I remember watching the treble winning Scottish Cup final with Conor Hazard in goal, and it was a strange time between the sticks for Celtic, and I'm still enjoying the fact that we've got a recognised number one there that there's no questions over.
How quickly do we forget how big a part the goalkeeper situation played in that season, Laura? We didn't really have a number one. It was Conor Hazard. It was a new £5 million Greek goalkeeper, Vasilis Barkas, and at times it was Scott Bain, who finds himself on the bench tonight. And you're absolutely right. We have moments where we start criticising Joe Hart. Just cast our mind back to that season and how bad it was back then, for sure. It's definitely a much better situation we find ourselves in now with Joe Hart between the sticks. As I say, keen to bring everybody in as much as possible. Michael Ross, hope all my fellow Celts are warm, well and happy and have a wee drink to enjoy the game. We were at Gracie's earlier on today, Laura, because obviously we're going to be there for Acsom's first live event this year with Brian McClare on Friday night. So we were in just obviously making sure everything was ticking along nicely, and it was filling up at 3 o'clock this afternoon with the Celtic fans who were on their way up to the game. So I hope every single one of them enjoy not only tonight, but if you're coming along on Friday, you can enjoy that as well. Frank Brennan will only enjoy it if we're 2 or 3-0 at halftime. You sound like Jim Orr. Jim Orr only enjoys the football once Celtic go 3-0 up, Laura.
Yeah, well, I mean, Frank's got a point, I suppose. It's not really enjoyable unless we're in the lead. But yeah, I think as long as we're playing well and we can at least get a goal early doors, you never know where it could take us. So, St Mirren have the sort of respect and the confidence going into this match that they have beaten us before, very, very recently, and they'll be taking a lot of heart from that. I saw in one of the comments, I think it was Ian McIntosh, said that Carter Vickers didn't play in that game either, so maybe they're going to take a bit of confidence from that, and it's our job to make sure that they don't take anything from that, and that we stamp our authority in the game from very early doors.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the games, I think, Laura, that it does settle your nerves slightly, especially with all the changes in the team. And as I said before, we are going to go into every single position, and I'll be getting your thoughts on that. What are your thoughts in the comment section on a debut for Kobayashi? What's your thoughts on finally seeing Starfelt playing in his favoured right-hand side of the centre of defence? Alistair Johnson back in at right back, but we've got Juranovic at left back, and his performance at Ibrox wasn't the best. What does it mean for Bernabeu? We don't really know. Is he injured? Is he being rested? He's certainly not sitting on the bench tonight. Irishman in Porto is telling us he's not even in Porto, not even Portugal, but Algeria. Hopefully you enjoy the game. And Acsom as well, all the way from Algeria. And we've got wee Bun Boy 7. Early hoops goal, settle us down. Hail, hail, boys. Well, let's hope for that. And John Sweeney, why is Carter Vickers out? As their forward line caused us problems in a 2-0 defeat. I hope Ange isn't taking St Mirren lightly again, as we know what happened the last time. We're going to have a completely different game tonight, with it being at home. I don't think Ange, once bitten, twice shy, I don't think he'd make the same mistake twice, would he, Laura?
I hope not. I'm hoping that, like you say, if Starfelt gets to play in his favoured right-hand side of the centre-back pairing, and obviously Kobayashi playing in his favoured left-hand side of that back pairing, maybe we can see a balanced approach that brings out the best in Starfelt, and hopefully we're not ruining the loss of Carter Vickers tonight. Ange doesn't strike me as the type to take teams lightly at the best of times, but certainly not after he's been defeated by them so recently. So I think as we'll go on to see with the rest of the lineup, it's a strong enough lineup, but that does have to be built on a strong defence, and it's just a question of whether that defence is strong enough to provide the foundations for a good win.
Yeah, with the debut boy coming in, with Johnston coming in for just his third start in the Celtic jersey, Laura, this team has never played together. This defensive unit has never played together. That sometimes concerns me, but I'm trying to look at the positives. And the positives for me are that Kobayashi is a naturally left-sided player. Starfelt isn't. And that is when we start criticising a lot of the time Starfelt, is when he's not looking that comfortable with the ball on his left side. I mean, we've said time and time again, in terms of the defensive elements of his game, he's very good at that, winning the ball, winning aerial duels. I think his positional play is very good as well. But it's when he finds the ball on his left-hand side and he dithers and he dilly-dallies a bit, he doesn't have that confidence. Sometimes you're looking for your centre-halves to miss out the inverted full-backs and hit your wingers. If that's not in your favoured, stronger side, it's difficult to do that. So, as well as having a bit of a concern that it's a new defence coming together tonight, Laura, I am looking at the positive of Kobayashi and Starfelt both playing in their favoured positions. Where are we with Starfelt? Where are you with Starfelt? Because, I think we've got to look at him and Carter Vickers as a partnership. But I am looking at, forward to seeing him playing in his favoured position.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with him. I think I've been a vocal enough critic of him in the past, and I think every time he starts to go on a bit of a purple patch of good form, something comes up that makes you think twice about him. So from tonight's perspective, I'm really looking forward to seeing him and seeing whether he can prove just how good he is in that position, because I think that's the only time I feel like he shows any weakness is when he's got the ball at his feet. And actually, I think when you look at the situations where he's got himself in trouble, it's because he's trying to turn and get the ball onto his favoured foot, which is a difficult thing to do in the position that he's in. He's not going to have that problem tonight. That part of his game should hopefully be eliminated, and he can concentrate on defending and doing what he does best. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do, and then even more excited to see what Kobayashi can do, because we've heard such good things about him.
Yeah, and Starfelt is the leading man tonight, if you like, because, a lot of the time you look at Carter Vickers as being the kind of leader at the back, certainly in the central defensive area. Kobayashi's coming in for his first start. Starfelt's going to have to talk him through the game. He's going to have to, coax him through the game. He's making his debut in Scottish football this evening. And another thing that I would like to point out is before you went live tonight, Laura, I don't know about you, but I was checking under my seat for any sound devices that might have been taped to the underside of my chair here. Did you do all the checks, before you got started? Yep. Good. Aye. We don't want to repeat what happened to poor Gary Lineker. Martin Davey, evening, guys. Well, Ange did say he would change the team. Well, he has done just that. And Joseph McGonigal comes in again on the YouTube. Got to say thanks everyone for tuning in. We're heading towards 550 live on a Wednesday night, which is tremendous. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking the video as well. Joseph McGonigal, Starfelt gets to play on his right side. Yeah, looking forward to seeing it. Another thing I would point out on that subject, Laura, is, and we'll come to Bernabe now, Bernabe is a left back. Starfelt weak on his left side, or weaker on his left side. That is our side's Achilles heel. And I'm pretty sure St Mirren would have been pretty keen just to pump the ball down that side of the park and target us constantly all night. I think that would have been their game plan. We're not convinced. I say we. I don't think we're convinced so far in relation to Bernabe's defensive qualities. He's dropped completely out of the side tonight. We've got to say there's a few questions if Bernabe's been dropped. We don't really know, Alan, to be honest. We really don't know if Bernabe's rested, which obviously is different, or indeed if he's picked up an injury, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't mentioned in the pre-match presser, and maybe we'll find out after the game. Is Carter Vickers injured? Well, let's just hope he's being rested. Do we have the luxury of resting who is our best defender? Possibly in a game like tonight at home. But do you think that would have been a concern, that the left-hand side would have been particularly weak and maybe targeted as well, Laura?
I think that's probably the reason Juranovic has been brought in, to be honest, because I remember when we did the match coverage for the game the other night, that we all said that the opposition appeared to be targeting that left-hand side of our defence as a potential weak spot, and we're getting some joy in that regard. So, Starfelt moving over to the right-hand side, Kobayashi being a naturally left-sided player, there was already a strengthening of that side that I think St Mirren won't be able to target as such a weakness, and I think it's been made even stronger by the fact that Juranovic in, because regardless of the fact left-hand side isn't his natural forte, he's definitely a better defender than Bernabe is, and so therefore we'll be stronger on that side than we have been previously. And I think that's been a deliberate decision by Ange to make sure that St Mirren don't think, because personally I think if you've got Bernabe in the left back position, that's a back four of Johnston, Starfelt, Kobayashi, and Bernabe. You know, you're probably talking about less than 50 appearances between certainly three of the back four there, never mind if you exclude Starfelt. So I think Juranovic being in there is perhaps just the only opportunity Ange has had to keep the experience level up, to keep the defensive ability up, and to make sure that that St Mirren don't feel like they've got too much of a free run at the back four.
Well, you know, if the lineup was indeed Bernabe at left back in place of Juranovic, I would be sitting here fairly concerned about tonight. Juranovic didn't have a great game at Ibrox, but that, you know, really bad performances by Juranovic have been few and far between, Laura, let's be honest. There have maybe been a few questionable appearances in Europe, but I really don't have an issue with him. I'm putting it down as just a bad day at the office at Ibrox. He's come in there at the weekend and I felt that he played particularly well against Kilmarnock. I've got no concerns with him tonight. We know that he's played left back before and done it pretty well. I mean, when he first signed, that was his debut was at Ibrox at left back. So I don't really have any concerns about it. I'd have been much more concerned had Bernabe started at left back tonight. It's good to see Johnson back in though, because very much like, and I'm going to get onto the midfield with Moy dropping out, when Johnson dropped out, it's not because he had a bad game, because his first two games were very impressive. So it will be good to see him back in. I had a theory, because you're allowed to have a wee theory here and there on Acsom, that perhaps it was a system that he's not used to playing yet. And it was an opportunity to take him out and say, look, this is how it's done. Juranovic has played the system for 18 months. Watch him and learn. Because there was a few occasions where he was out of position in the first Kilmarnock game. Found himself at left wing, for example. So it may well have just been a way of kind of bedding him into the system, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of conflicted about that, because I know Sean raised that in the match coverage that we were doing the other night with Kilmarnock, and I get where he's coming from with the fact that Johnston does have to learn the role a bit better and be a bit more disciplined. That's obvious, but at the same time, I really enjoyed his enthusiasm and I enjoyed his work rate and how hard he was willing to work from that position. So it's going to be important to strike a balance between the two, because you want him to be disciplined when it's necessary, but you don't want to stifle his enthusiasm and stop him doing things that the opposition might not expect. So I hope they've struck a balance, or can strike a balance, because I'm really excited by what I've seen so far, and I hope that even if he does become a bit more disciplined over time, we still see that enthusiasm that he's had so far.
Yeah, because it's a part of his game. It's part of the game that we enjoy. A couple of more comments coming in. If you haven't already subscribed on the YouTube channel, then go ahead and do it. It's free of charge. You get content every single day, and there's loads more to come in 2023 as well. FJT, good luck to the new lads. Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing Kobayashi perform. Another brilliant bit of business, actually, from the Japanese market as well. Peter McGlone, defence is giving Peter the fear, Laura. Plus, don't know what O'Reilly has done to deserve a start. Carter Vickers, a massive miss. As well as you don't know what O'Reilly's done to deserve a start, I don't know what Moy's done to drop out, although he's sitting on the bench. And I've said this before about Moy. You know, he strikes me as the type of player, Laura, that Ange has got no issues with him. He can play him against Hibs, for example, who scores 2 goals. He's one of the best players on the park. Drop him for Ibrox, and he's not going to get Moy knocking his door on a Monday morning demanding answers. He strikes me as being a low-maintenance type of a player, and often I think that can be a player's undoing. So, you know, he's dropped out the starting 11 tonight. Was O'Reilly really playing that badly? There's quite a few comments in here saying he didn't deserve to start tonight.
I think for me, O'Reilly's been a bit of a disappointment in recent games, and I'm definitely looking for him to have a better game tonight. And I really hope that he comes out and does something, you know, of the calibre that we know he's capable of. I don't think he's been quite as bad. It's the same as any football criticism. No player is quite as bad or quite as good as a lot of the fans tend to think they are. There's exaggeration on both sides, and I think that's what O'Reilly suffered from. But going back to Moy, the phrase consummate professional is almost a kind of backhanded compliment in football sometimes, and it kind of just means somebody that won't kick up a fuss for any reason, but they're not a particularly spectacular player. In Moy's case, I think he's a consummate professional in the most positive sense of the word. He's obviously been doing a fantastic job for us so far, but you said it yourself during the Kilmarnock game the other night, we got 90 minutes out of him when we hardly ever get 90 minutes out of him, and it's possible that just so many games in such quick succession for a guy who doesn't seem like the most physical of players, it was probably just a game too soon for him. So I'm not too surprised to see him on the bench, and I don't think he'll be concerned that it was anything to do with his performance, and I'm certainly not. I would expect to, even if we don't see him come off the bench tonight, I would expect to see him back in the starting lineup before too soon.
Yeah, for sure. Jason Lee, I'm really curious to see how our defence looks without Carter Vickers. Curious in a good way, Jason, because any defence without Carter Vickers is going to be weaker for sure. But we need to learn to survive, I guess, without any individual player, and that comes down to the depth of the squad. And I'm not subscribing to this, Greg McVeigh. I really hope we don't make up to either GG or CC. That last bit, come on. That's unthinkable that CCV will be going anywhere. We have heard, of course, all the rumour and speculation around Giakoumakis as he's been brought up by Greg. Let's have a wee chat about the fact he's not in the squad tonight. Are we reading too much into it? Are we adding 2 and 2 together and getting 5? Giakoumakis has made a couple of comments on his social media. We know that there's been loads of interest in the player from various different countries, Laura. I guess we are expecting him to move on. Is this a sign that it's imminent?
Well, listen, Giakoumakis better just watch what he's doing as far as social media is concerned, because we always remember the story of Christopher Julian, who shared a picture of himself on a flight to Germany only for it to fall through. So you can say a lot before something's signed on the dotted line and end up, kind of sitting on your hands for 6 months as Julian did. So if I was Giakoumakis, I would be careful about what was happening. But I'm very, I don't know if it's something to do with getting older, but I'm not very tied to any of these players. I think Ange is the person who makes the difference for us, and I genuinely believe that if Giakoumakis was to go tomorrow, Ange would bring somebody else in who could do as good, if not a better job. So would I like to keep him for the rest of the season? Probably yes. Would I be absolutely distraught if it turns out that he's away? Probably not either. The only thing that would concern me is the lack of options up front, and as I've said previously, the only thing I want to make sure is that if we let Giakoumakis go, there's a striker going to follow him back in the door in quick succession.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I get the point that many make in relation to some of the players that we have who can slot in through the centre, such as Maeda, Abada, even Haksabanovic. And I think it's that lack of versatility in Giakoumakis that is preventing him from getting more minutes, Laura. He's an out-and-out striker. You can't put him on the left. You can't put him on the right. He doesn't play deep. He's a striker, and that's it. Which means that unless Kyogo is injured or losing form, Giakoumakis isn't going to play. So he's in a situation at the moment that either sucks that up and always takes his chance, or he moves on, and it looks as though it's going to be the latter.
I'm just laughing. I can't see who it was that said it, but it's one for the slightly older folk there. Somebody said David Trezeguet spotted at Silverburn. That made me giggle. So
am I part of that older group that you're referring to? Peter McGlaughlin is saying Reston v Morton then. I think you might be talking, Peter, about Carter Vickers. Yeah, we do have obviously the cup game coming up against Greenock Morton. And, people call these games potential banana skins. Even when we had Brennan Rodgers in charge, I remember 2 of the toughest games he had were against championship opposition in St Mirren and Alloa Athletic, both at home. And we really, struggled to break them down eventually. I think in the Alloa game, Craig Gordon was very lucky not to get sent off that night. He took out their striker, Greg Spence, and I think it was nothing each at the time. So I always look at these games, and to be honest with you, I would rather tinker with the team tonight than I would on Saturday, because you just play your strongest team against Morton, get the job done. Joe Fulham, experiment is fine, but these beat us already. Yeah, they did, Joe, and there was a few changes that day as well. In Paisley, Chancellor. Hope JJ has a better game at left back tonight than he did last time. And again, I'll go back to that versatility. The reason that Juranovic is getting minutes tonight from the start is because he's versatile. Otherwise, Bernabe perhaps would be playing. There's even a suggestion that Hatate can play there, although I'd much rather see him in his favoured position at midfield. He makes up a midfield three of Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, and Matt O'Reilly coming back in. Is McGregor at that stage now where he's so consistent that we often don't even talk about him, Laura?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got his a wee tidbit for you. I got a Christmas present this year, which was Callum McGregor's book, and my name's in the back with a bunch of fans, which was great to see. That was a present from my family, so haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. As I say, present company excluded. I hope it's one of the best football books I've read. But yeah, no, I think McGregor's just one of the ones that you could wax lyrical about how good he is. I think it's clear for all to see just how much we missed him when he was injured for that period earlier on in the season. He's just the words consummate professional come to mind. He will do the job that he's asked to do to the fullest of his ability, whatever that job is, whether he's playing the deeper midfield role, the more advanced midfield role. I quite like him in the more advanced midfield role. I quite like to see him getting forward and having a pop at goal, because I think that's something that I would like to see him do more of. But he's so disciplined and so willing to do what he's asked that if he is playing the defensive role, that is what he'll play. And I think he's just an example of what happens when you work consistently hard and you follow instruction and you have the ability to back all of it up. And the football brain, I don't think people appreciate the size of his football brain. He's one of the most intelligent footballers I can remember playing for Celtic, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Sometimes when you talk about hard-working footballers, you have this image in your head of like a Thomas Gravison type headless chicken running about, and I don't think that's the way that Callum plays. I think listen, people have talked about Carter Vickers being in their all-time Celtic 11. I think people need to start talking about McGregor.
Great shout, by the way, and he will be joining the 500 club slightly later than James Forrest, who's on the bench tonight. Someone else on the bench who might make his debut, of course, is Iwata. I'm looking forward to seeing him. And up top, Abada gets a start alongside Jota and Kyogo. I'm looking at Kyogo's stats this season, 16 goals he scored, top goal scorer. Jota looks as though he's starting to get back into the groove, Laura. But I'm looking forward to seeing a start from Lil Abada. But you just have to look at that bench to know that Abada needs to perform. Once he gets the jersey, he needs to perform tonight.
Yeah, I think he certainly needs to have more of an impact early in this game than he did coming off the bench the other night, because he's one of these unfortunate players that he's either the game changer, he either has a performance like he did against Dundee United last season where he scored that late winner, or the game completely passes him by and he's not worth commenting on. But if he can have one of those games where he's an impact player, then it's all the better for Celtic, because again, for me, as far as technical ability goes, he's probably one of the most gifted we have at the club, and I would really like to see him take this opportunity tonight from the start to really make a difference. I think to be fair to whoever plays on the right-hand side, and I would apply this to Forrest, I would apply it to Jota when he's asked to play on the right-hand side. For some reason, we do seem to target a lot of our forward play down the left-hand side. And whoever's playing there, whether it's Maeda, whether it's Jota, whether it's Forrest on the odd occasion he's been asked to do it, the left-hand side does seem to see a lot more of the ball. And so you can't really blame the right-hand-sided player if the game passes them by a bit. But when they do get their opportunities, they need to take them. And that's the case for Abada tonight as well.
Absolutely. Ange apparently has just told the BBC that Giakoumakis and Carter Vickers were sore after the last game. So
I thought that said sold, and I was like,
oh dear, I know. Everybody just relax. They're just getting a wee rest. They're having a wee rest. They're tuning into Acsom to see what we're saying about them behind their back. But there's loads of people coming in with certain predictions. Stubbs's horse, 2-0 reckons Stubbs's horse. Whereas Ian, you're looking very, very confident tonight with a 7-0 win. Add to our superior goal difference. Well, let's hope that does happen. A couple of other points I would note. Obviously, he didn't mention Bernabe. He's mentioned Giakoumakis and Carter Vickers. Jens has fallen off the side of the planet. I mean, where is Jens? Stephen Welsh is back on the bench. We've already made it known that we're going to be listening to offers for Stephen Welsh in this transfer window.
Yeah, Jens is a strange one. I mean, he seemed to be, when he first came in, almost as if, we've found our new Van Dijk and Denier kind of pairing with him and Carter Vickers. And like you say, the fact that he didn't even spring into my mind is where is he? I think suggests everything about his lack of involvement over the last few weeks. Not heard anything about it, but as we can all remember, he is still technically only on loan at the moment, and perhaps it's a sign of what lack of future he might have at Celtic Park. I personally liked him as a defender. I think he did a very good job. Has a bit to learn, but he's still relatively young. So I'm surprised to have seen him drop away quite as severely as he has. But that's the nature of things. You've got to take your opportunities when it's there, and if other people are going to do that, then you don't really have much chance to turn things around once things start going in a certain direction.
No, absolutely. I'm sure there's going to be loads of moves in and out at Celtic Park before the end of this month, but let's get to the action. Thanks everybody for joining us, 550 strong in the live feed, and loads of great comments coming in. Keep them coming if you're watching this back as well. Like the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and all that's left for me to say is Laura Bradburn once again, thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.